Alright, so I'm going to show you how to rig up a Euro combo. And in this particular video, I have a 10-foot 3-weight. I'm using a Douglas rod. It's a Douglas LRS. And I have a 5/6 San Miguel Ross reel. And on here, I have 6-weight fly line. Just regular old fly line. I spool it with backing. And then I put on Rio Gold Elite slick cast line. And then you can see right here, I'll zoom in, but you can see that I literally tie Chameleon Maxima, which is a 6-pound mono, directly to the loop of my fly line. And I wind up all that 27 yards of Chameleon Maxima, which is a mono. And then I'll go ahead and I'll tie a 2-tone or tritone, whatever you have. I use a tritone indicator, which is a sighter, and I pull off about 18 inches of it. And the reason why I pull 18 inches is because you're going to lose some while tying. And just for quick tying, and I've never been faulted by this, meaning I've never lost a fish, I use a surgeon's knot. So I just kind of lay them over top of each other, bring it through once, bring it through twice, then I wet it, cinch it down, pull it tight, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I go ahead and I take off these tag ends. Cut it relatively close to the knot. So then I have my sighter, and I have right here, looks to be about 2 feet. Then I'm going to use 5X fluorocarbon, and you want fluorocarbon because it helps sink, and I'm going to pick about 5 feet of it. And 5 feet is a great length because that way you know that when your sighter is at the water surface, your fly is about 5 feet below. And I'll make this connection again with a surgeon's knot. Do a double surgeon's knot, just wrap that around twice. Whoops, screwed that up. How did I screw that up? All right, well, this happens, and when that happens, you know what you do? You just start over. All right. One way to prevent that from tangling is wet the line so they kind of stick together. Bring that through once. Bring that through twice. And cinch it down. Cut off your tag ends. All right, so now I have my Chameleon Maxima. I have about 1.5 feet of sighter, and then I have about 5 feet of fluoro tippet. Then what I'll do is just rig it up. See what kind of line or fly I'm going to use. Probably for this, I'm going to put a little crayfish in here. I'm going to almost use this as sort of like Euro jig. So there's a nice crayfish pattern that I can dead drift through here and then slowly strip it and bounce it off the bottom. Do a clinch knot, wrap it around a couple times. There you go. Now, if you wanted to get super technical, what you could do is take a little background backing. So I have a little piece in here. There you go. Get a little background backing. and do a barrel knot on your sighter. Barrel knot is I just kind of line it up, I tie a circle around it, and then just pass this through 5 or 6 times over top of itself. So around the knot and around the line, and then you literally just wet it and pull these 2 lines. It's not really any strong knot, and you want it to kind of slide up and down, and then I'll cut it, leave about 1 inch on there. I'll do that maybe 1/2 inch below it, and then that way you have an extra sighter. And I usually put it smack dab in the middle. If I need to go deeper, then I'll put it up higher. I can slide this up, but it's just another way of kind of knowing where your line is. So let's cast right in here. If you were to use a if you were to Euro nymph or tight line and not Euro jig, I would just use a heavy fly as my point fly, and then up in here you can go ahead and tie another fly on. I'm just going to cast right in here, let my fly kind of sink. I know where my indicator and line is, and then I'm just going to pop it a little bit. Ooh. And ooh means I was stuck on the bottom. That's annoying. So something's over there. I got to make sure that I don't do that again. Just let that dead drift through, and then just kind of pop it around the bottom. It's crayfish imitation. And when you're using a crayfish imitation and it's bouncing on the bottom, sometimes you get caught up on rocks and little crevices. As long as it's not a log and that hook kind of jams into it, you should be able to kind of finagle it free. Fishing right around this shadow line. You can sort of see it's sunny up in here. There's a shadow in here, and that's where I'm kind of working the shadow, because on a hot day like this, chances are they're not going to be in the sun. No, I know. See that little Dacron backing? I know that my fly is about 5.5 feet below that. Ooh, something went after it. They wanted it moving. Well, let's try that again. Maybe they want it moving just a little bit faster. Ooh, hit it there again. Let that kind of sink down to the bottom. Once it hits the bottom, then I'll just pop it right on through. Take a couple steps down. I'm just kind of giving a nice little shake here because it is a crayfish. Let that sink on down. Something's way down there, so I wonder if I can get my fly down there, kind of let it loop around, swing on through that tail end. Take another step down. That background backing is a little bit underwater there, so I know that I'm probably 6 feet down. I can still see the top of my mono sighter. So one advantage to using this technique is I can cast way downstream, let that kind of swing on through, and then I'll strip it on up. Very slowly strip it up, give a little bit of action. Nope. Letting that just sink down. Now it could be that fly. Maybe they just don't want that type of fly. Maybe it's not buggy enough. Maybe it's not something that they're used to eating the last couple days. So I might have to tie on a different fly. I'll make one cast in here. Let that drift right on through that way. And I'll do one way down there before I call it quits with this fly. Then I'll switch flies out. There's nothing wrong with switching things out. You never know what they want. So now I'm going to do a little bit of a traditional nymphing, Euro nymphing, where I'm going to put on 2 flies. The lighter fly goes on first, so I'm using a tiny little fly here first. Using a clinch knot. Whoops. Now there's multiple ways of doing this. This is just one particular way that I use. And then I take about 18 inches of line of 5X fluorocarbon, tie it onto the hook bend the smaller hook. Make sure that's nice and tight. This is a barbless hook, so the tighter the better, so it doesn't slip off. And then I'll take the heavier fly, which is going to help it sink, and I'll put that as my point fly on the bottom, and that's what's going to go really deep. All right, so same setup as before. I just have 2 flies now. Make sure I get them wet so I can cast them out. Let them sink down. As your fly is sinking, raise your tip a little bit. That'll give you direct contact with your fly. That way, any sort of bump you feel, you'll be able to capture and set that hook. So as it's sinking, I raise my tip and then just kind of let it drift on through. Casting it across the other side of that faster current and just kind of letting it drift right on through. My background backing is right at the water surface, so I know my bottom fly is probably about 5 feet below that. Giving it just a little bit of action here as it comes on through the tail end. All right, little action is what I needed to give it. So you saw 2 different ways to fish a Euro combo. Looks like it took that top fly, which is barbless. Just got to be careful about that. There we go. Nice rainbow.